Good afternoon. It's Sunday, November 23rd. I'm Aryeh O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. IDF forces reportedly shot and killed a Palestinian man as he approached the Gaza Strip security fence this morning. This marks the first fatal shooting of a Gazan since the summer's Protective Edge operation ended in August. The army said troops fired warning shots in the air at a group coming toward the North Gaza fence near Jabalia. When they refused to halt, the soldiers fired at their legs. Palestinians said a 32-year-old man was hit in the back and died from his wounds. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed a number of pressing national and security issues today, elaborating at length on issues such as Iran, bills against incitement, and the Jewish state law, which passed after a rowdy debate. Here with more is IBA's diplomatic correspondent, Eli Wogerlander.
Prime Minister Netanyahu first addressed Iran, telling the cabinet that he spoke last night with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who updated him on the nuclear talks with Iran ahead of tomorrow's deadline. He told the ministers that Israel is anxiously monitoring developments in the talks. Netanyahu said that there is no reason why Iran should be left with thousands of centrifuges that could enable it to enrich uranium for a nuclear bomb in a short time. Therefore, no agreement at all would be preferable to a bad agreement that would endanger Israel, the Middle East, and all of humanity. Strategic Affairs Minister Yuval Steinitz echoed those sentiments.
Prime Minister Netanyahu was updated by Secretary Kerry. I was updated by other countries that participate in the talks. And we are doing our best to convince not to sign a bad deal with Iran, a deal that will enable Iran to become a threshold nuclear state, or at least to put some corrections and remedies to the agreement. We are following the talks with serious concerns.
Turning to domestic issues, the cabinet passed the Jewish state law 15-7 after an impassioned argument given by Netanyahu. He said Israel is the national state of the Jewish people. It has equal individual rights for every citizen, and we insist on this. But only the Jewish people have national rights, a flag, anthem, the right of every Jew to immigrate to the country, and other national symbols. These are reserved for our people in its one and only state. Netanyahu then deflected heavy criticism over the law, saying, I hear from people who say, who needs this law? We've managed without it for 66 years. And I ask, who needed basic law, human dignity, and liberty? We managed without it for 45 years. But both are necessary. Israel is a Jewish and democratic state. There are those who would like the democratic side to prevail over the Jewish side, and there are those who would like the Jewish to prevail over the democratic. In the principles of the law that I submitted today, both of these values are equal, and both must be considered to the same degree. The Prime Minister noted that the new law addresses current realities, especially regarding incitement within Israel, saying the law is needed because there are many who are challenging Israel's character as the national state of the Jewish people. The Palestinians refuse to recognize this, and there is also opposition from within, from those who are calling for two states for two people, but who also oppose anchoring this in law. They are pleased to recognize a Palestinian national state, but strongly oppose a Jewish national state. Finance Minister Yair Lapid said that his party is not against the basic idea of the law, but that its current formulation is horrible and meant to benefit the needs of the Likud party when it goes to primary elections in January. Said Lapid, we are talking about a law that Ben-Gurion and Jabotinsky would have opposed. Netanyahu also admonished his coalition members, telling the heads of the parties to stop threatening with a crisis. I have heard lots of ultimatums and resignation threats as of late surrounding the Jewish state bill and other proposed laws. We cannot run the state this way. Aryeh?
Thanks, Eli. Prime Minister Netanyahu says he will submit draft legislation to revoke rights from East Jerusalem residents who participate in terrorism or incite against the State of Israel. The Prime Minister's proposal follows Interior Minister Gilad Erdan's move to officially cancel the permanent residency status of Palestinian terrorist Mahmoud Nadi, who was the driver for the suicide bomber at Tel Aviv's Dolphinarium in 2001, in which 21 people were killed. Nadi was convicted of being an accomplice to manslaughter, assisting in terror, and harboring an illegal alien, and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Erdan sent Nadi a letter saying, your actions are a blatant breach of trust as a resident of the State of Israel, and I have decided to cancel your permanent residency status. Erdan's move revokes the validity of his identity card and bars him from all rights and services, including Social Security and health insurance. Erdan says his decision comes due to the recent wave of terror attacks carried out by Palestinians with permanent residency status in Israel, emphasizing that these people will no longer be able to continue to enjoy the status of permanent residents, and that he will work hard to revoke their residency and deny them any economic benefits that come with it. Well, joining me now in the studio is Hebrew University political science professor Avram Diskin, who also chairs the Department of Management, Government and Law at the Sharei Mishpat Academic Center. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Professor Diskin, you were one of the people who drafted this law, which in essence turns Israel into the nation-state of the Jewish people. What do you say to other people like the Justice Minister Tzipi Livni or the Attorney General Yehuda Weinstein, who say that this not only is unnecessary but harmful to Israel?
First of all, I have to say that I was involved when the law was really suggested by 40 Knesset members, most of them from Kadima, from Tzipi Livni's party. And she had a kind of a personal row with Avi Dichter, and I guess that was the main reason why she was at the time against it. Generally speaking, what I have to say is that what the law is really doing mainly is copying existing laws. It's not some kind of a new law, something that was never there before, but it raises the existing laws into the status of a basic law, which was not the case before. I think we badly need it because of two reasons. First of all, because we know now that too many people in the world, but too many people also in Israel, do not accept the legitimacy of Israel as a nation state. And second, I have to say that there is nothing in any version of the law that I'm aware of, including the two versions which was raised lately, which is against democracy. It's quite the opposite. I think that it guarantees democracy, it guarantees equal rights to everybody, including Arab, Druze, Cherkess citizens, etc. So I don't think that really most of the arguments against the law are not political.
Well, Professor, practically speaking, what does it add? What does it benefit?
As I said before, first of all, there is the international arena and the challenge of the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state. Second, there is a problem. We have a serious problem with the judiciary. And we know that now we have two sets of norms. One is the norms set by the Knesset, and there is another set of norms which are set by decisions of the Supreme Court, which very often are opposite to what was decided by the Knesset. For instance, many rights were written into other basic laws just because the Supreme Court thought that that the Knesset should have accepted them. What we do now is that we actually say to the Supreme Court, one of the principles that characterize Israel is that we are a Jewish state, we are a nation state, like most, I would say, democracies in the world, and at the same time, we are a very, I think, typical and observant democracy.
Well, we just heard about Prime Minister Netanyahu's desire to take away the residency rights and other social benefits from East Jerusalem Arab residents. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's quite another issue, and here we have to step into a political issue. You know that Jerusalem was annexed, the only part of the West Bank and of all the territories that were occupied by Israel in the Six Days War, the only area which was annexed officially to Israel, excluding, by the way, the Golan Heights, is Jerusalem. And because of that, the people in Jerusalem, the Arab residents of Jerusalem, got this special status.
And now he wants to take them away.
And now he wants to take them away. Let me tell you a story. You know, just yesterday, I was stoned on the way to Jerusalem. Just when I came from part of Jerusalem, actually. Okay, so you have to balance here. You know, do you want to stone Abraham Diskin's car? Well, I survived it. Everything is fine, no problem. And you want to have social security rights, etc., at the same time. You have to make a decision. So I think it's quite reasonable. And by the way, there is a history of judicial decisions about that as well. But I think we don't have the time to discuss that.
No, we don't. Thanks, Professor Diskin, for joining us.
Thank you.
Tomorrow's deadline to clinch a deal between the West and Tehran to curb Iran's nuclear program appears to be unattainable, and chances are growing that the sides will decide to extend the deadline for another 6 months. Israel Radio Affairs Arab Affairs correspondent Iran Singer is in Vienna and spoke to IBA's Margaret Dudkevich about these talks.
The countdown is on for world powers to reach a comprehensive deal with Iran to rein in its nuclear capability. About 30 hours from now, the deadline allocated to reach an agreement will expire, and it is unclear whether it will be extended further. Officials in Vienna, where the current round of talks are taking place, said chances of reaching an agreement with Iran by tomorrow remain extremely slim, saying it would need a miracle to close a deal with the Iranian regime, noting that large gaps between the sides remain. Until now, Tehran has resisted all efforts to scale back its nuclear program. Iranian officials today warned of dangerous ramifications, saying failure to clinch a deal will only serve to boost radicals on all sides and create dangerous repercussions in the Middle East region.
What we are now seeing is an immense impact, or an immense effort made by the Americans and the Europeans and all the other Western parties to reach an agreement by tomorrow with the Iranian side. The pressure is very high on both sides to reach a deal, and we're all waiting here in Vienna to see where it's going to.
Discussions to reach a deal between Iran and the P5+1 countries, the United States, Britain, France, Russia, China and Germany, have dragged on for more than a year. Iran hopes to avert further sanctions being imposed by the West and demands existing sanctions be lifted and it be allowed to renew diplomatic ties with the Western countries. The deal sought by the West would restrict Iran's nuclear program for roughly 10 years, and cap its ability to produce fissile material for a weapon to a minimum 9-month period. It will also facilitate access to its nuclear sites. Officials in Jerusalem emphasize the deal does not require Iran to dismantle its nuclear infrastructure and leaves it with the ability to enrich uranium. According to Iran Zingel, despite the foot-dragging, Iran is interested in reaching a deal with the West.
On the Iranian side, what they don't want to see is a failure on their part or on their side. The economy is in a very bad situation right now in Iran, and they are willing to have the sanctions lifted as soon as possible. So I think that if you are looking for a catalyst or for a true element that will convince both sides that an agreement must be reached until tomorrow, it's the political background back home.
While Israel's position concerning the nuclear talks is known, not only Israel but the entire world fears Iran's nuclear program, Singer said.
Well, it's not only Israel. I think that we will find today other parties, not only Israel, that are concerned with this nuclear project of Iran. Secretary Kerry was calling Prime Minister Netanyahu, but not only Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. He was also talking to the foreign ministers of some of the Gulf states like Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates. They are all afraid that the Iranians will have a nuclear capability and a nuclear possibility to create a nuclear bomb.
Whatever the outcome of the current round of talks, Iran and Russia have already signed agreements to construct 2 more nuclear plants in Bushehr. Tehran also plans to build 20 more nuclear plants in the country in the coming years. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
In the West Bank, a Palestinian home was torched in the village of Khirbet Abu Falah near Ramallah this morning, and "Death to Arabs" is painted on the wall in Hebrew, in an attack that its owner blamed on Jewish settlers. No one was hurt in the fire. An Israel police spokesman said officers from the Nationalistic Crimes Unit were sent to the scene and have begun an investigation. Islamic State graffiti sprayed on a monument to fallen Druze soldiers outside Dalat al-Karmel was discovered over the weekend. Radical Islamic graffiti was also sprayed on a Jewish National Fund marker on the Carmel Scenic Road. And in the Jordan Valley, police have arrested 6 Palestinians for allegedly defacing the IDF memorial there. Police found on their possession knives and screwdrivers used to remove about 24 names of fallen soldiers from the memorial. The Jerusalem District Court today indicted a border policeman of charges of manslaughter in connection with the shooting death of 17-year-old Arab rider Nadim Nawara during Nakba Day protests in May. The officer denies that he used live ammunition and insists that only rubber bullets were fired to disperse the rioters. The incident took place in the Arab neighborhood of Betunia in the north of Jerusalem when some 150 protesters attacked the Ofer prison with rocks and burning tires. 2 rioters were killed during the violence, including Nawara and 22-year-old Mohammed Abu Taher. The military police investigated the incident and reportedly found evidence connecting a live round of ammunition and the border policeman's rifle. Hundreds of people paid condolence calls today to the homes of the 4 murdered rabbis who live on the same street in Har Nof, Jerusalem. The rabbis were murdered last Tuesday by 2 Palestinian terrorists who entered morning prayers in the B'nai Torah synagogue in Har Nof during morning prayers. A delegation of Druze leaders and other Israeli dignitaries offered condolences to the families of the 4 rabbis who were murdered.
I think it is important for us as a delegation from the Druze nation and the Bedouin nation that we serve the army, defense the state, to be part here. We defense, we fighting for the future of our state Israel. It's important to come and to say that we part from what's happening here for the future, to continue to go together. We do it from Jethro in the Bible till now.
They were a symbol of our history, and the loss cannot be ignored or forgotten. And it remains us the 2 major things in our history. So much suffering, and yet so much value.
IBA's Eli Wogeland was in Har Nof this morning and spoke with the brother of Rabbi Aryeh Kupinski, who explained how his brother's actions inside the synagogue saved many lives.
My brother Aryeh, he was there with his talis and tefillin, and it's not clear whether he was in upstairs or downstairs, but he heard the shooting and he heard the calls of the Arabs, one of the terrorists, Allahu Akbar, and he immediately ran to try and battle against the terrorist. And maybe, I mean, we're not sure, but maybe he may have been shot, and he still went, and he supposedly threw a chair at him, or maybe a stender, held on to the hand. One of the terrorists that was holding the semi-automatic hold him so he couldn't shoot anybody else, and he was fighting against him so that other people can get out of the shul, and he called and he told everybody, escape, get out of here. And apparently he wasn't aware of the other terrorist that probably stabbed him. And that's what brought him down. But before that happened, he gave the opportunity to many people who were inside the shul to get out of the shul, and his actions saved lives.
This was characteristic of his personality?
Yeah, well, my brother's name is Aryeh, and Aryeh means lion, and he had the qualities of a lion. I remember as a child, I'm closest in age with him, and we used to be in the same room together, sleep, and siblings are, siblings fight. He was always very, very fierce, and he was always the one that won the battles, and not more than once I was the one crying, and also my parents had a lot to deal with him as a child. He had a lot of temper tantrums, and he had this fire in him. But as he grew older, he channeled it to good qualities, and he took it to a good place, a lot of acts of kindness, but with a lot of neshama in his soul. He put everything, his whole heart and body into what he did, whether it was prayer or learning, or the mitzvahs that he did, or the chesed that he did. And I think it could be, looking back with his family, we're thinking about it, maybe all the things that he went through from childhood, the qualities that he had, were preparing him for the last seconds of his life, where he took that fierceness that he had in him, and he used it to stop the terrorists at least a little bit, so that other people can be saved.
Sitting here in Shiva for the last week, what has struck you?
I didn't hear you.
What has struck you about the Shiva that you've gone through here the week and the people coming?
Well, I think the first part is that it's not a private mourning. We're not alone. So many people from so many different groups of kinds of people, Jews, non-Jews, religious, non-religious, ultra-religious, people from all over the world, emails. At night, I'm not supposed to distract myself from mourning. Usually I like to read before I go to sleep, but I'm not really supposed to do anything. I answer emails till I fall asleep, and people from all over the world, Memphis, New York, LA, England, and we feel this tremendous love and sympathy. And people, there was a guy that came here on the first day of Shiva from Beit Shemesh. Didn't know anybody of the families, none of the people that were killed, none of the families. He just came here and just sat and just cried. I mean, tears pouring down his face. And it's like really part of they all feel that it's not just us that we're hit and are hurting, but everybody is. I see you also. I mean, you're tearing, and it shows. It gives us a lot of strength. You know, people really, really care, really are proud of it. And listen, something good is coming out of this. The unity of Am Yisrael. It's an amazing thing. It really, really is.
Well, kickoff is just a few hours away for the highly anticipated and contentious Premier League soccer match between Beitar Jerusalem, known for a core of rowdy and thuggish fans, and the politically charged Arab-run Bnei Sachnin. Security for the game at Sachnin's Doha Stadium is massive, with more than 700 police officers and 230 security personnel to be deployed. Police originally forbid the game from taking place because they said the Sachnin management had not adhered to all the special requirements that police deemed necessary to secure the venue due to the current wave of terror attacks. But police reversed the decision yesterday after a meeting with Sachnin management convinced them that arrangements were now appropriate. In the past, Beitar Sachnin matches have often resulted in violent clashes between fans or between fans and security forces. The game will be broadcast on Sport 1 beginning at 7:15, and hopefully it will be about good sportsmanship. Taking a look at the local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were mixed this first day of trading in the week. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. Taking a look at the weather now, it's going to be a very wintry day. The forecast calls for scattered rain from the north down to the Negev tomorrow with occasional thunderstorms. A flood warning is in effect for rivers in the south and the east, and it will be colder than normal for this time of year. Here's a look at the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. For our broadcast this evening, Erin Viner will be at this desk tomorrow to bring you the latest news from Israel. Please join her. Till then, I'm Aryeh O'Sullivan wishing you a shalom from Jerusalem.